You already have file download tracking set up and you're looking for data on file downloads from your website, then we're going to cover where you can find that data in Google Analytics and how you can build your own report in Data Studio. If you don't have this tracking set up already, then there'll be a link on the screen for the video how to easily track and categorize file downloads from your website. And there will be a link in the description as well. So in Google Analytics, when you're logged in and you're on the home page, and if you set up download tracking with event tracking, it'll be in the behavior section from the left navigation, events, and top events. Now you'll have to check with the person that configured the event tracking for downloads to find out what values they passed to each of these event dimensions. So that's event category, event action, and event labels. So all the data that we'll see here is based on the configuration that we covered in the previous video about how to easily track download data. So the values for the dimensions here will come from what we set up in that video. So for example, for event category, we have downloads for each of those events. But for you, your event category might be just download without the S, or file downloads, whatever value yours will be set to. So when you click into downloads, drill down into downloads, the way I have it set up here is it'll provide the file types of the downloads, so PDF and any other file types. That will be categorized automatically no matter what download the user obtains from your website. And if you drill down further into these file types, you'll see that we have the file name or the URL where the file is located. So we can see the total events, the number of unique events, that is the number of times an event with this value, with the category, the action, and label value was seen at least once within a session or within a visit. And then of course, if you have an event value placed on each event, it'll provide this data for you as well, the event value and the average value. But we don't have that set up, so there won't be any non-zero numbers in there. So this is how you can easily find it in Google Analytics. Now for Google Analytics 4, it's a little bit different because of the way that it's set up. So Google Analytics 4 is an event-based tracking and reporting system. So in this Google Analytics 4 environment, we'll find the downloads under engagement and events. And if we scroll down here, we can see this file download event name. If we click on file downloads, it gives us a little bit more data. This download data is automatically tracked if you've enabled enhanced measurement. And to check whether you have that enabled, you can go to the admin section, go to data streams, click on the data stream that you have set up for this account, and look at this enhanced measurement section. And you can see on the right that we have the toggle set to automatically track these different events. And we click more to view more here. We can see page views, scrolls, outbound clicks, site search, video engagement, and file downloads. So those are all automatically tracked. If you don't have enhanced measurement toggled on, you can just click the toggle to turn this on. So we're going to leave that as is. And now we will go to the Explore section. So in this section, we can actually set up a report that will give us a little bit more data about our downloads. So we'll click on Freeform, wait for that to load, and we're going to name this Downloads. And instead of city, in the rows section, we're going to replace that with the event name dimension. And we'll get rid of the city dimension. Then we'll add a couple other dimensions. We'll search for file extension and file name. So we'll include those two. Click on apply and drag those two dimensions over into the rows section. And then the data table will update here. And what we'll do is make these rows nested. So that way, instead of showing separate rows for each of these different file downloads, it'll all fall under one row for file download and one row for PDF, since those first two values are the same. And then if we scroll down in the columns category, we're going to get rid of that dimension. We'll scroll down to the metrics section and grab event count to replace active users. We'll also look for another metric for event count per user. So that way we can see the average number of events per user. And we'll click on apply. So we'll grab event count per user metric and drag that under values. Then we'll go down to the filter section and click on event name. We'll select the match type for exactly matches to enter the expression for file download. Click on apply and it'll filter the report only for file downloads. And that's what it gives us here. So we have these two files. We have the file name here. We're not able to see the full file name, unfortunately, but it gives us the event counts for each of these files. That is the downloads for each of these files, as well as the event count per user. Now, if we export the data to Google Sheets, for example, we can see what those file names are. So let's import the data, wait for the file to open, and we can see, if we click on these cells, the file names of the download. And that's exactly what we're expecting. Now we'll rename this to downloads, and we can create another tab, another freeform, and turn this into a bar chart. Or we can actually duplicate. Let's duplicate this tab and get rid of this one. So now we have the same tab, and instead of the data table, let's choose this bar chart option. So right now, this bar chart only gives us the event name, but let's replace that dimension with file extension. So we can see a breakdown of the file downloads by file type. Now, if there were more files, if there were more file types in among our downloads, then it would show them all here in this bar chart. So we have a data table representation as well as a chart representation, and we'll call this tab file type. All right, so if we go back to the main page for explorations, we can see our report here, and we can just keep going back to that, so that way we don't have to try to configure anything in GA4, and just refer to this report to see any updates for the data. You know what? Let's also create a line chart for this data as well. And again, for the breakdowns, instead of dimension, we'll use event name instead. It really shouldn't matter. Like, it'll return the same line chart, but we know that the filter is applied to matches file download, so that's what it'll give us for the event name. So file type, and we can name this chart downloads over time. So if we go back to the Explore main page, we can see our chart there. Now we'll go to Google Data Studio to see how we can build a few charts and tables for some reporting on downloads. So this is what the end product will look like, with a time series chart for the number of downloads, just as an overview section for file downloads, and then we'll have a section for drilling down into the downloads that we see from our website. So that includes a bar chart for the downloads by file type and a data table for each of those downloads where we can drill down into those files. So we'll click on Edit and take a look at what's under the hood. Now, these charts and tables pull from our Google Analytics account. And let's take a look at how to add those data sources quickly. So this is the list of data sources that we have. And you want to make sure that you are pulling from the correct data source. So click on Add Data Source, Google Analytics. And for this example, I want Digital Learning Sandbox, the UA property, and all website data. And then what I would do is just click Add. I already have this configured. So click on Add to Report, and the data source should be set up now. So we're going to add a page, and what we'll actually do is duplicate the first page and remove the second page. Now, you don't have to do this, but I just wanted to keep the format here. You can start with a new page, another format. I just wanted to show you how to create these sections for a report. So we'll remove the second page and delete these charts and tables. And we'll just create them from scratch. Okay, so for the event category, let's click on Add a Chart. Under time series, we'll use the first one. And then we'll drag a chart for this area here. Wait for it to load. So you can see the data source is set up there. It already gives us a dimension and a default metric. For the dimension, we'll click on month of year and replace that with date. That's already at the top there. So choose that. And then for page views, we'll replace this with total events. And that gives us a time series for the events or the downloads that have occurred over the given time period. Now we can adjust the style a little bit with the y-axis. So it looks like 3 events or downloads, that's the maximum value. So for the left y-axis, what we can do is, let's say, change that to 5. So that gives us a better chart to look at. And then we can add another chart, and this time we'll click on table. So we'll drag an outline for this table. And then in the dimension, instead of date, what we want is event category. Total events, we'll keep that. Now, for this table, it just shows us all of the events, all the event categories. Right now, we only have downloads, but your data may have some other event categories in there. So what you can do is add a filter for this table, and you can just call it downloads. Include, select a field, type in event category. For the condition, click on equal to and type in downloads. This will depend on what your actual event category is. So it may be, for you, it may be download or file download, but with the way that I've set up the event tracking or the download tracking from the previous video, we called it downloads. So we'll save that. And since downloads is the only event category here, it appears like nothing changed, but if it had other event categories, then it would only include the downloads event category. Now for the other charts, we will select a bar chart and create one here in this section. Wait for that to load, and for the dimension, we're going to type in event action, because the way that we set up the file tracking was our downloads would be automatically categorized according to file type, which is passed into the event action. So you can see there's PDF and HTML, which was a mistake. We had to adjust that tracking from the last video, but it still appears here. So those are our file types. We'll keep the total events. We can also apply the filter for downloads. Now, we've already created the filter for event category and set that equal to downloads. So we can just choose this filter here, and that will apply that filter to this bar chart. But let's click on style to adjust the axis a bit. So for the bottom axis, let's show a axis title, and we can get rid of, since we only have one series, that's the total events, let's get rid of the legend. So we'll scroll down to the legend section and click on the none option. And let's scroll back up for the x-axis, the labels, the interval labels there, you have to figure out what works. So for the custom tick interval, since these file downloads, they'll only have whole number values, we'll change that to 1, but you'll see that it disappears. So we'll go to the axis max and click up until we have values that show. Now, we know that our max value for PDFs is 4, so we'll keep clicking on the up arrow to make sure that we include our max. And it's easy to tell what our max number of downloads is. So we'll settle with 5, and that looks good there. Now we'll add our table for these downloads by file type. Now for this dimension, we'll keep the event action, we'll keep the total events, but we can also add a metric for unique events. So that'll give us the number of times that a download occurred at least once in a session. And that number will either be equal to total events or less than the number of total events, because a session, if it has at least one download, there'll be either one or more downloads in that session. So if we scroll down, we'll just make sure that we have a filter here for the downloads. Click on that to choose the download filter, and this is what we have for our chart. Now, let's just align these charts a little bit and click on style, and again we'll get rid of the legend so that the charts are a bit more aligned. You know what, how about what we're going to do is just match this up with the other, see if we can get this to align. Okay, there we go. And let's rename this title to downloads over time. Now there's one more thing that we want to add for this data table. This is a feature that kind of mirrors what's available in Google Analytics. So if we click on the data table, make sure we're in the data section, go to the dimension, and where it says drill down, toggle this on. And do the same for the other table. Now what this does is it allows you, or whoever the user is for this report, to drill down into these values here. Click on view so we can see how users can engage with these tables and charts. So if we hover over the data points in this time series chart, we can see the number of events or number of downloads for each day. Of course, for this bar chart, you can just read the chart to see how many downloads there are for each of these file types. But if you hover over these bars, you can also see the same information. And for this table, if you look in the top right corner of the table, you can see these up and down arrows. And the option that we have available right now is the down arrow, meaning that we can drill down into these event actions. So when we click on that, we drill down into the event labels, which are the file names of the downloads, and it gives us the data points for each of these files. Now you'll notice in the upper right corner with the arrows, you can't drill down any further, but we can go back up a level to the event action. So depending on the version of Google Analytics that you're using and how you configured your download tracking, these are ways how you can find data on the file downloads from your website. So if you want to see how we configured download tracking with Google Tag Manager to automatically categorize our downloads by file type, take a look at the video in our description. And if you want to see more videos on web analytics, website user behavior, data, and reporting, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you around.